Before I share what happened, I want to introduce myself. My name is John Grease. I'm 29 years old. I'm formerly an urban explorer and the only survivor to make it back home to America. I'm writing this to you to give all of you an idea of the hell we went through, and I strongly suggest to you and anyone who's into urban exploration to not go looking for it. Trust me, you don't want to. So to start, this was meant to be a simple urban exploration. Nothing more, nothing less. This was in Germany. We went to an abandoned factory which I will not disclose, but I'll give you the rundown of what occurred here. This factory we meant to explore was where war prisoners and any of those sent from one concentration camp to another were expected to work. Even Jews were put to work in these places. But we didn't go to the factory to learn about its history, nor am I writing this to give you the history of what went on in the factory. Like I said, it was meant to be a simple exploration of the now abandoned place. Also, like I said, I won't disclose it. I wouldn't want anyone to go near it. When we arrived, we unloaded our gear from the vehicle. Got everything, John? My friend Mike asked me. Yeah bro, flashlight and everything, I said. I came to this place with my friend, Mike. Along with us were 3 other people. His girlfriend, Jamie, joined in, though she wasn't the type to be into urban exploration, and she even told me herself. To see her with us on this indeed surprised me. I assumed she wanted to spend more time with her boyfriend. Then there was Grayson, Mike's cousin. He had a thing for urban exploration, and he'd been doing it for years. Then there's the last person, Kane. He was a big, muscular guy, almost 7 feet. He was a foot taller than me. He likes to work out a lot, but he does go on urban explorations on occasion. He's also Mike's college buddy. We took flashlights, cell phones, hydro flask bottles, protein bars, and first aid kits. The simple and necessary stuff. We also didn't expect to explore the factory and the surrounding area for over 2 hours. After we began our exploration, I decided to take a peek in one of the abandoned buildings. I suspected it to be another factory building, full of old, rusty machines. Upon further investigation, the factory was more for designing and manufacturing German vehicles and parts for them. I made my way into another factory, only to realize it wasn't a factory. The more I looked, the more I noticed this building had rooms in it, more so sleeping quarters. Mike and Jamie went into the factory to explore more of it, while Grayson and Kane explored outside the perimeter. I went into one of the rooms to get a better look at what's inside. I was grateful about the floor beneath me that it's not giving into my footsteps since I went to the second floor. As I was looking around, I noticed a book laying on a dusty wooden table on top of a piece of paper. The front of the book was titled Mein Kampf. Looking at the pages, I'm not surprised with Hitler's words. Hell, I almost forgot he even wrote a book like this. Perhaps this was the room he once stayed in. Since I was able to understand German, I could read it. Not surprising that he had a bad taste for Jewish people after all. Next to the table, there was a small shelf with other books. I was about to reach for one when I glanced down at the paper. I froze for a moment, reading it. On the top of the paper, it said, Die Vril-Gesellschaft. Translated, it said, the Vril Society. That's what intrigued me about it. I heard rumors about this occult society and the involvements they had with the supernatural. However, I assumed it was all just a conspiracy theory, more or less. To see this piece of paper give reference to the society made me wonder if said society truly existed. I began to think there may be more to what the Nazis were doing during World War II, not just some bullshit about an Aryan master race or occupation of other countries in Europe. That said, I put the book back on top its original spot, left the books alone, and pressed on to another room. Unfortunately, but expected, I fell through the floor and landed on my ass. Luckily, my ass was okay, but a broken wood of the floor scraped my leg. Luckily, it left 2 inches of a big scratch. Still, I needed to take care of it, since it was bleeding. I was lucky to have my first aid kit with me, so I got the kit out, took out a roll of gauze, and patched the wound. Just then, I could hear footsteps charging towards the building I was in. John, I heard Mike yell, coming towards me from the entrance door. I heard a loud bang from the other building. Are you alright? He asked. Yeah, I'm fine bro, I said, standing myself up. but my ass hurts now. What, you got a boo-boo on it now? He said with a laughter. Kiss my ass, Mike. I told him, and we laughed it off and exited the building. Is everything okay, Mike? Jamie asked. Yeah, he's fine. He's got a big boo-boo on his ass cheek now, Mike explained, and Jamie and I chuckled. Just then, we heard a slight scream, followed by a loud thud. Kane, you alright? I heard Grayson yell. That's when we realized something happened to Kane. We immediately went to the direction of the scream, and we saw Grayson approach us. Guys, Kane fell through the leaves. He needs our help. I'm fine, dude. We heard Kane yell, confirming to us he's okay. Geesh, first I fall through the floor of a building, and now Kane. Also, what did he mean when he said Kane fell through the leaves? That's when I decided to take a look at where Kane fell. But when we got to the location, we were met with an astonishing discovery. What I assumed to be a giant ditch in the ground created by the Nazis as a trap for enemy soldiers was actually an opening into a tunnel. Guys, I think we made a discovery, Mike said. Looking down with a flashlight, I noticed a ladder next to Kane who was wiping the dirt off of his clothes. Interesting. An opening into a secret tunnel. Why not use a door instead of leaves? Grayson suddenly asked. Maybe that would have made it obvious of the tunnel's location. If this was meant to be secret, you might want to find ways to keep it that way, I explained. I decided to climb down the ladder, which appeared to be rusted. Once I got down, Grayson, Mike, and Jamie accompanied me, and we got our flashlights going. I think whatever the Nazis were planning down here, it must have been something big. This place was huge. In all my years of exploring tunnels, I never came across a tunnel this big, and the designs in it appeared as if the Nazis were ahead of us in technology. However, upon further investigation into the tunnel, it seemed clear that this place was quickly abandoned. Looking around, I noticed there were writings and symbols all over the walls. I pointed at one part of the wall where the closest writing had been, only to see a skeletal body of one of the Nazi personnel laying there as if he had stayed down. But the more I focused on it, the more I realized this wasn't the case. Looking at the torn clothing, I noticed in the middle of it, there was a huge hole, and in the hole, parts of the skeleton's ribcage was missing. It seemed as if someone, or perhaps something, had torn open the poor bastard's abdomen and ripped out his insides. The skeleton was even missing an arm. The writing next to the skeleton didn't seem any better. It looked as if it was written in blood, perhaps the blood of the deceased soldier next to it. Translating what was written, it said, "We contained them. We sent them back, but I fear they will come back." What was contained? What did these bastards bring into our world that was deadly and dangerous? I assume they must have been trying to open a portal into hell, but if that were the case, I'm sure that the bastards here wouldn't have been successful in containing the demons. Guys, look over there, Mike yelled, his flashlight pointing at another wall. This one had the swastika symbols all over the place, followed by an assortment of random words which seemed to be a cry for help mixed with a cry of terror. The walls had lots of written words, all in German. I will share some of them to you to see what we were looking at. Translated, Black devils, demons from the void, send help, we cannot get out, help, they are monsters, don't let them out. I assumed whatever these Nazis experienced down here must have driven them insane. This wasn't the only thing that interested me the most, though. When we explored the tunnels further down and saw more skeletal bodies and more of these ramblings and swastika symbols, I noticed a set of words I immediately recognized, one that wasn't written in blood, sitting above a titanium watertight door. Die Vril Gesellschaft. The Vril Society. On the metal door written in blood, it said Nicht eintreten, or do not enter. Just reading that sent chills down my spine. What did the Nazis do to have to ward off anyone daring to go in? Screw it, Mike said, before he foolishly decided to turn the wheel and open the door. I wanted to try and stop him, but I was dumb enough to let him go ahead and continue on. After he opened it, there was an eerie feeling I got from the place. It was dark, but once Mike stepped inside, we were met with a surprise. The lights in the area had suddenly turned on, with exception to the lights in the tunnel. As strange as it was, I wasn't surprised, since I assumed there must have been a backup generator that just kicked in following Mike's entry through the door. Looking around, I noticed there were strange devices that seemed like they came from some sort of science fiction movie. In one part of the facility, there seemed to be a small, disc-shaped object which looks like a miniature flying saucer with the swastika imprinted on it. I went up to it and realized that the object was nothing more than that of an action figure. Perhaps this was meant as a future design for technology the Nazis must have had in mind. "Is that Aldebaran?" I heard Kane ask. I turned to see where he was pointing at, and I noticed a large picture of a star along with a picture of an area in space with a line pointing to Aldebaran. "Yes, it is," I said, staring at the picture. "What did Aldebaran have to do with the Nazis?" Grayson asked. That was an interesting question. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I heard from some of those alleged tinfoil hats that the Vril Society had connections with that particular star system. There was even an alleged contactee or channeler by the name of Maria Orzik who was said to have some connections with extraterrestrials from that star system. I think it was called the Aldebaran Mystery or something like that. I'm not sure. Still, this raised questions we didn't have concrete answers to. Focusing our attention elsewhere, I turned to investigate another part of this strange facility. I noticed more and more skeletal bodies, all wearing what I assumed to be high-ranking SS uniforms. But like the poor bastard out there, most of them had large puncture wounds, some on their abdomen, others on different parts of the skeletal bodies. One even looked like the front of his skull had been ripped right off. I noticed a large walkway that leads to more rooms. Along with that, the walkway was littered with skeletal bodies. I suppose these people never made it out from the atrocity that happened in here, or they were forced to stay in this place with no hope of getting out. But if that were the case, it wouldn't make much sense since one of them, the one I saw at the tunnel, had similar puncture wounds in his body. My best guess is after the incident was over, he was alive long enough to make it out and write on the wall with his blood, until he eventually succumbed to his death. I walked through the walkway and I noticed a few rooms with doors open. In one room, I saw strange weapons of some kind. There was a small gun that resembled an MP40, but this was made with what looked like a small, long, and very thin Tesla coil. Was this meant to shoot bolts of electricity instead of bullets? I went to grab it and noticed that this was light. As for seeing if it still works, I decided not to find out, nor take it with me. Mike, on the other hand, grabbed one of the rifles and observed it. "I wonder if it still fires," he said, aiming it at a wall and ready to shoot it. "I'm not sure if that's a good idea, sweetie," Jamie said. "Relax, it'll be fine," Mike said, giving that carefree expression. "Don't," I said. "Whatever it was that killed these people, I'm not sure if it's still in here. I wouldn't want its attention if it is," I told him. He shrugged it off and put the rifle down. After we left the room, we continued on. In the next room, I noticed a large tank that resembled the Panzer VIII or Maus, but instead of a tank gun, this one had what looked like a railgun on it. I started to wonder if the society itself was nothing more than an organization dedicated to developing prototype weapons. "Hey John, come take a look at this," Kane yelled. I turned and realized he wasn't in the room with us, but he was in another room. We went to the room where the sound came from. When I came into the room, Kane and Grayson were looking around the area. That's when I saw some strange and interesting symbols. Though what caught my attention the most was the object in the middle of the room. It looked like a giant crystal ball. Among it were wires connected to a strange device even I have no clue what was. Next to the giant object, there were some documents. Reading one of these documents, this object was meant to be a device used to harness what they described as Vril energy. On another document, it says that the Vril Society believe they are descendants of extraterrestrials of the star system of Aldebaran. Reading further and further documents, it became clear that members of this society intended to use this Vril energy to power the weapons in this facility. If they succeeded in this, Germany would have easily won the Second World War. After looking at the documents, I began to ask myself, what the fuck went wrong here? I wonder if there's more to what these people did. I thought to myself, trying to find out why these bastards never got their success. That's when we decided to press on. We came into the last room. If there was any room that intrigued me the most, it was this one. Why? Because when we came in this room, I noticed more of these railguns and regular tank cannons all pointing at a particular direction. Strangely, there was nothing in that direction other than a wall. There were also more skeletal bodies, and most of them appeared to have been worse off than the ones we previously saw. However, some of these skeletal bodies had their rifles pointed at the same direction. I began to think whatever these things were must have come from that direction, and I assumed they were trying to contain it. Grayson and Mike were walking around the area until one of them called, "Yo, come check this out, you guys," Mike said, prompting us to come to his location. When we did, we were met with a strange device that looked like a massive radio. Next to the radio had buttons which had numbers on them. Mike picked up 2 photos that were on the ground. He was staring at it, and that's when I noticed his eyes went wide. "Check this out," he said, handing them to me. When I looked at them, I noticed they were photos of high-ranked SS members standing side by side with other humans. But there was something strange about these humans. Not only do they resemble beings with Nordic features, but they appeared to be wearing what looked like space suits, but none I ever saw. Could they be the extraterrestrial race that the Vril Society was referring to? It was hard to tell, since they looked like they could pass as any regular person on this planet. I gave it to Jamie, and then she gave them to Grayson and Kane. "Do you think those could be real?" she asked. "Probably. I hope they weren't faking it," I said. I looked at Grayson, only to look past him when I noticed words written in blood. This one caught my attention because it gave me a clue as to what happened here. It translated, "Our ancestors abandoned us. The Black Devils hijacked our call." "What's this?" I heard Grayson ask, and I saw him looking at the back of the photo. Grayson gave the photo to me, and I could see a set of numbers on the back. Looking at it, it read 1477. That's when I heard Mike turn the switch to reactivate the radio device. "What the fuck are you doing, Mike?" I yelled at him. "I just wanted to see what this was about." He said, "Are you nuts? What if those devils are still down here?" I then asked, "What devils?" "We never saw any," Mike explained. I admit, he was correct. It was also mentioned they contained it. "I fucking hope you're right," I said, feeling upset about Mike's actions. "Babe, please don't do anything stupid." Jamie yelled at him. When the device kicked in, I noticed the atmosphere had changed. It felt like waves of energy was flowing all around us, and most of this was concentrated at the direction to where the weapons were pointed at. However, nothing happened so far. We assumed that the device had failed following the terrible incident that took place down here. "What's this supposed to be?" Mike asked. I looked to see what it was, and I noticed a screen with the buttons of numbers below it. That's when I immediately recalled the numbers written on the back of the photo. I picked it up and was ready to punch it in, wanting to see if it would do anything. But then something stopped me. I could feel this cold grip of terror within, telling me that what I'm attempting to do will end horribly for us. Then I immediately recalled the writing on the wall, which also stopped me from what I'm about to do. "I'm not punching them in," I said. I was about to rip the photo apart, but Mike foolishly snatched the photo out of my hand to look at the numbers. I have no clue as to why he did what he did, but his next action sealed their fates. After looking at the numbers, he punched them into the device. That's when the device gave a strange sound, followed by mass amounts of energy being formed, creating a large portal of some kind. Once the portal was formed, I noticed that it was completely dark. "Mike, what the fuck did you do now?" Kane yelled at him out of anger. "I don't know, man. I didn't think this was gonna happen," he said, trying to explain his foolishness. What happened next was something that will scar me for the rest of my life. There were these strange, guttural growling noises coming from that portal. From the portal came a large group of winged entities, with bodies black in color and appeared to be misty and shadowy. The faces appeared to be strange skulls of some kind. The best I can describe their appearances is that the entities looked a lot like those Bando Gora captains from the game Star Wars Bounty Hunter. If you played that game or searched for images of Bando Gora captains on Google, you'd get an idea of the appearances of these entities. One of those creatures looked directly at me, then it turned to look at Mike and the others. "We gotta get the fuck out of here, now," Kane yelled in a panic. Unfortunately, he was closest to the portal. Once he ran, one of the entities gave off a loud, guttural growl and flew towards Kane at very quick speed. It caught him, and what happened next made me want to spew my guts out. This thing ripped Kane to pieces and tore an opening in his chest with its sharp, powerful claw. "Run," Grayson yelled. That's when I immediately took off running, leaving my gear behind. I didn't look, but I immediately recognized the next scream. I assumed Jamie had been caught by one of those entities. "Jamie," I heard Mike scream. "John, help." He then yelled, but I wasn't dumb enough to oblige. Of course I knew that if I went back there, I would be torn to shreds too. I kept running and running until I came to the entrance we escaped from. Mike then screamed, followed by Grayson. The latter's scream was immediately cut short, and I think the entity that caught him must have ripped his throat out. I opened the door, and just when I did, I saw one of the entities come out of the room. It turned to look at me. That's when I quickly closed it, with the entity flying towards me at quick speed. The door slammed shut as the entity was 8 feet away in reach. I heard a loud banging noise, followed by scratching sounds as if the thing tried to find a way out to get to me. However, I heard its wings, and it sounded as if it flew away from the door. Still, I did not take any chances, so I continued to run. I admit, I was stupid enough to leave my flashlight behind, with only my cell phone's flashlight to help illuminate the way through. It was weaker than my regular flashlight, but this was still better than the thought of walking in the pitch blackness. I eventually found the ladder and crawled as quick as I can. After that, I reached the surface and was happily greeted by a familiar sight of the abandoned factory building, followed by a breeze of fresh air. Then I decided to look for something to cover the opening, ensuring that no one else tries to find it. I can't say for sure whether or not someone has found it yet, but if they do, I can only hope they heed the warnings on that door and turn back. That's what we should have done, but we didn't. I wish I stopped my friend from being a fucking idiot. I guess I'm just as much of an idiot for not doing so. So now, here I am. I was suspected of murdering my best friend, along with his girlfriend, cousin, and college buddy. However, police couldn't find any evidence of having committed the murder, and that the situation became a missing persons case. I wanted to tell them what really happened, but who in their right minds would listen to me? Not to mention, if they did listen, they'd probably attempt to go looking for them down there in the tunnel and unintentionally allow those demons out. So some of you might be wondering, why am I telling you all this? It's because I'm aware some of you may be international urban explorers, so please consider this a warning to you all. If you decide to go searching for abandoned places in Germany and you see an abandoned factory, I strongly hope you stray far away from that place at all costs, because it may be the one I escaped from, and the one with those devils below, waiting to be set loose. Thank you to my superfans, Sweet Black Swan, Tacy, and Brooklyn. I really appreciate you guys supporting my channel, and I look forward to making more content for everyone.